All right, and we're back. It is COMP123, that's Programming 2 with C# and Visual Studio. And it is week 1, part 3 of our broadcast. Again, this is being broadcast up on YouTube. You can always look at the video. Some people have. Surprising. Last day we talked about, when I brought it up, I'm just going to bring up the last project we're working on. We had actually a solution that included a project and this test method, this test class, right? So we have two things. We have two projects inside of a solution, right? We have the actual project that we're using to generate Hello World, right, which is this one. So if I look at program.cs, which is your main program file here, let's see if I can see it. It's not bad. Let me make it a little bigger for you guys so you can see it a little bit nicer. There we are. So here's program.cs, and you can see that last day we talked about just a reminder of how things work. There's some new things that you haven't seen before, eh? Some new things. One of the things we haven't seen before is this idea of public and private and protected, right? And I'm going to cover that next week or the week after, right? Because what these are they're called access modifiers, right? So access modifiers, what they do is they make our methods and our classes available to other methods and classes. It's public. If it's protected, it's only available to members of the or classes that are derived from other ones. We haven't talked about what classes are yet, right? But we'll talk about them. And then private are methods that are protected, classes that are protected, let's say, from we hide the information so that you can't have access to them. In order for to do our testing, though, we have to do this public access modifier here. We have to put this in place. And we need to make our hello world to console method static, because that way we're not really, whenever we make a method that's inside of this class, the only way that it'll work without instantiating the class, and I'm using some new words here, right, is if I make it public static. This is the return type, the return string. We talked about this as well. This is basic method 101. And it returns the hello world string, this hello world string. Okay, so how do we test it? And I'm going to talk about testing a little bit more. We're going to do all this again. I'm going to make another project. And I'm going to show you from the very beginning how to connect to GitHub and all that kind of stuff, just to give you another shot of doing this all, right? Because your lab is due today, right? So let's talk about this. Here's your test class. And you've never seen a class like this before, but we'll talk about it in a second. What the test class does is it connects to our program class, right? This is our program over here, right? And what we're doing with the test class is checking to see if the method is working as expected, right? And we're going to use test-driven development, but on a very high level. All we're doing is unit testing, right? So all we're going to, and each unit is a method, like we talked about. Also remember from last day, the things I'll be testing on next week is red, green, refractor. What does that mean, right? Red, you make your test fail. Green, you make a pass. And then you refactor if you have a chance to, if you can. Okay, it's not always possible to refactor, but we're going to do this again. So let's start a new project. Right now, this is called COMP123, summer 2016, lesson 1. We'll just make it lesson 1B. All right, so that we'll actually do another one, and then you can see it all again from the beginning, which will give a chance for everyone to kind of do it together with me. All right, now we kind of broke the ice last week or last day with a couple of or with an example, but I want to do it again just to give you a chance. Okay, so let's close this solution down. There we go. Solution's closed down now, and I'll open up a new solution. Right, so file, new, project. Follow me here on, and if you're whether you're using 2013 or 2015, and again, if you have a laptop, I think it'll benefit you to have 2015, only because there's additional functionality that comes with that. Okay, when we're here, one thing we need to note is I want to make a Visual C# program, which is a console application. Console application, right? When it's a console application, what I want to do is under console application, I'll change the name to what the name is for our new project. So it's COMP123, summer 2016. Lesson 1B, right? Because we kind of did a 1A, kind of last day we'll do 1B. Notice that on the bottom, I'm going to click on, this time around, I'm going to click on create new Git repository here. See, create new Git repository. I'm also going to choose my location. I'm going to put it in another folder just so that way I can keep all of your stuff together in one folder. So create new Git repository is here. And what I want to do here is now if yours doesn't say create new Git repository, if it says add to source control, which it may, right? That's okay, because what it means is it's going to ask you what source do you want? Do you want Microsoft Team Explorer or Team Foundation Server, or do you want Git? The answer is you're going to choose Git when it comes to that dialog box. There's going to be a dialog box that pops up after this, okay? So let me kind of click on this to continue. So I'm going to press OK. When I press OK, I get this. When you press OK, you're going to get a dialog box that says, do you want to use Team Foundation Server or Git as your default? Choose Git, and there's another little checkbox that comes up that says, make this your default, right? You want to make that your default version control system. All right, so we've got our empty application with our little class program. We're going to be talking about classes and objects. In fact, if anything you can get out of this course for this semester, it's all around classes and objects. And we're going to do some review. This week is review, getting your feet wet, getting Git set up, talking about test-driven development, a little bit with unit testing, some new stuff that we're going to incorporate throughout the time. Okay? So let's take a look at this. So we've got our program.cs file. And usually our program file is our driver class that drives the rest of the program. We're going to have external documents eventually. We're going to have more than one file. And instead of just having a program.cs file, we'll have other ones, right? But for now, the way we want to do it is kind of put everything together. Namespace is kind of a container that contains all other things, like, for example, our class and so on. So keep a close eye on namespace. Our COMP123 S2016 lesson 1B is our namespace. I can certainly change that if I wanted to, but I don't recommend that. Okay. Let's put it up on GitHub right away. How do I do that? So empty as it is. Let's do that. Notice I have another tab for Team Explorer here. I'm going to kind of hide this one. So if I kind of go down here, there's a tab for Team Explorer. Okay. Team Explorer, if you don't have this window, you can get it from View. And if you go all the way down or to here, there's Team Explorer. You can fire this up. Because remember, Visual Studio 2013 and 2015 allows you to customize your environment so you can pull around windows where you like them. Mine is over here. So there's two tabs here. One at the bottom here is Solution Explorer. Another one over here is Team Explorer. Team Explorer deals with your version control. Okay? So here I am with version control. I'm going to click on Changes. Now, if you've never set up your stuff before, notice there's no changes here. But if you've never set up anything before, right, if you haven't done Git before with Visual Studio, what you need to do is go to Settings. Here's your Settings. And under Global Settings, you've got to put in your information. So what your name is, your email address for Git, not your email address for school or whatever, your email address for Git, okay? So you set this up here in Visual Studio. And once you've done the settings, right, then you can do a commit. So if I click on Changes, there you go, here's Changes. I can put a commit if I make any changes. Right now, I have no changes, right? Let's add some changes. One of the things I'm going to be asking you to do is document. There's going to be two pieces. Usually some kind of code you're going to give me, and then an internal, what I call internal documentation is comments. I want you to comment your code, right? So comments are really important. Your header is really, really important. And there's a couple places to put it. I recommend putting it between the using statement and the namespace or above the using statements. For now, let's put it between right here. So I'm going to kind of make a couple spaces, and we're going to add in some stuff. Notice as I start typing in here, my Team Explorer says that there's a change to program.cs. It detects there's a change, right, as I type. So here I'm going to put in some comments. And my recommendation is you use this comment style. So /*, and then */, right? That's your comment style. What you want to kind of put in here is who the author is. So the author is you, so mine, right? Maybe the date. So today is May 13th, Friday the 13th, right? Maybe your student ID. I'm not going to put that in, but I'll put a space for it. Student ID might be a good idea, right? So mine is 300185557. Here's going to be something else. Maybe a description of what this thing is, right? Something like this program demonstrates GitHub and version control best practices. Notice how it just keeps adding the star as I type. Right. We also explore unit testing, right? As an example, right? Now you can put whatever comments you want in here, but typically there's something like this. So I've got a bit of a header, and when I talk about comment headers like this, it's going to be some piece of information I'm going to be asking for. Also, this is the date, and maybe if I'm going to keep changing this, I might have a date modified. So date created. Maybe there'll be a date modified. Today is the date I modify it, right? Because I'm kind of creating it and modifying it all at the same time, right? So it's still the same date so far. You can always talk about version. This is version 1 of my document. So here's my description. Maybe down here I have version. So version 0.1, right? Why? Because you can keep track of when any changes happen, right? So if I make a version 0.1 initial, I'll say something like this, initial version, right? Okay, I added a comment header. That's enough for Microsoft to kind of decide there's a change, right? And on the side here, you notice Program CS is something that says I have a change that's happening here. If the way to find that out in Visual Studio 2013 is to click on changes. So home, under Team Explorer, click home, and then click changes. And it'll show anything that's excluded or included in your changes, which is this. For Visual Studio 2015, you got to click on the plus, which adds everything to the staging area. And for those people who forgot what that means, let me bring up the Visual Studio, sorry, GitHub again. We talked about, actually I'm making a diagram. So, you know, again, from scratch, hopefully we'll be able to do this a little bit more effectively than last time, right? So I'm going to bring up my favorite, let's say, which is a little lightweight version of Photoshop. And let's put it up again. Remember that there are 3 steps when we do our stuff. Here, I'll bring this up here. There we go. We start off with your work, right? In your local folder, we have something called a staging area, right? Where your work gets staged. It's kind of a middle step before it goes into the repo. What happens is you can push it onto the cloud, all right? Those are the steps. So you start off with your work, you modify your work. When it's ready to go to the staging area, you can choose which files go to the staging area. I've chosen all of them, but you don't have to. You can choose only some. And sometimes you may not want to send everything to the staging area, especially if you have some kind of proprietary pictures, you don't want to include for whatever reason. Maybe it's a configuration file or a control file that you don't really care to share, whatever. So you put it to the staging area. After you get the staging area, you want to add it to your local repo, and to get it there, you need to make it a commit. A commit is a named snapshot of your current state of your files. That's all it is, right? So if I go back, I'm here, I'm ready to make a commit. I got to make a commit message. I'm going to put in initial commit. And then I'm going to commit stage. And for your case, if you're using Visual Studio 2013, there won't be a staging area. I'll be 1. All right, so don't worry about the staging area, but it still happens. So I'm going to click commit staged if you're using Visual Studio 2015, and you're going to get this message here that says commit with a certain number. This hash number is a unique number for the commit, right? And if I want to, I can sync this to my GitHub repository. I don't have one yet, okay, but I will. All right, so back to this diagram. I'm here now at this point. So I did my work. I kind of made a change. I staged everything. I made a commit. And then I'm here at this local repo step. I want to push it to a remote, but I don't have a remote yet. I need to establish a remote repository on the cloud with GitHub. Now, you need to have an account already, which I do. And here on the Mac side, I'm just going to go and create a new repo. So I'm going to go to my GitHub. I'm going to go to my Centennial College, right? And notice that on Centennial College, I have a couple of repos I've done lately. I'm going to do another one. Here's COMP123, you know, summer 2016 lesson 1. We'll do 1B, just like we've named the repository. So I'm going to click new repository here or here on the plus. And once you've done that, you can see that you can name the repository COMP123 summer 2016. And it's unique for your account. Lesson 1B, that'll be the one that I make. right? And then I'm going to click create repository. Okay, now that I've done this, I have what's called a URI that GitHub generates, this little link. This is the link to your repository, right? So once you've seen this link to the repository, I can use this and copy it and put it into Visual Studio. So I'm going to copy this, go back to Visual Studio, and now in my Team Explorer, I'm going to click Home again, Home again, Home again. And then I'm going to go to Sync. This is all the same for Visual Studio 2013 and 2015 up until this point. But 2015 has some additional options, like I said. One of them is I can publish to Visual Studio Team Services. I'm just going to shut this down. I also have a plugin for GitHub. This GitHub for Visual Studio. By the way, if you want to get this plugin for 2015, if you look at Tools, Extensions and Updates, this is in Visual Studio. You can see that under Extensions and Updates, I have a plugin for Visual Studio because Visual Studio is very flexible this way. And if I look down here, there's a GitHub extension for Visual Studio. Now this is available for 2015. It might be available for 2013 as well. GitHub extension for Visual Studio, which gives me this little link here. So if I really wanted to, I can click Get Started. I'm showing you the advantage of having 2015. And then if I click Get Started, you can see that it automatically finds my repository, right? Which is like stupid easy, right? But we don't want to do it this way because some of you don't have access to Visual Studio 2015, and maybe you don't have the plugin, or maybe you can't get it because you're using the machine in front of you here at the school. That's okay. Let's click on the next one, which is Get Started, and you're going to see a link like this, right? As an example, something like a yellow link, a yellow field, text field, where you're going to put in the URI. I'm going to kind of copy and paste the URI. There it is. That's the URI, or the link, for the GitHub remote. And I'm going to click Publish. Okay, it says failed to publish the branch to the remote repository. See the output window for more details. Let's see what. Here's my output window. It says the remote name cannot be resolved. That's my inner exception. I don't know if you guys got the same problem. You may have not, right? But let's try that out. So it says the remote name cannot be resolved. I love when I have problems because it just makes me work harder. That's all. All right. So publish to GitHub looks even nicer now for me than before, right? But I'm not going to do this, I swear. I'm going to go and try and do this thing right now. Let's go and publish, and you see how it failed again. So how do I fix this? I'm going to click on my master branch here, and what I can do is I want to fix my master branch, right? And the reason for this is because, you know, it's a problem, right? I can always delete my repository and stuff too, and I wasn't anticipating this problem, to be honest, right? But let's check it out. So if I go back to settings, I can see that my repository settings, it shows me my repository. And I also have something called the remote right here. And I'm going to check it out and see what the problem is, right? So I can edit my remote. And I can look at my remote origin is this. And it's wrong, right? COMP123 less than 1B. That should be, actually, that should work. That should completely be right. Let's see what's happened here over here. COMP123 session, so, you know, setting 1B needs to refresh. Let's see if this is correct. Yeah, looks right. I'm surprised it didn't work, actually. I'll be honest with you. Because this should totally work. All right, well, we're going to remove it. We'll try it again. Okay, let's go back to home. That's how I fix it. Go back to sync. And I'm going to click here, and I'm going to right-click and paste. This is what should happen normally, right? And I'm going to click publish. And it failed again. So it's definitely something to do. It could be two reasons, by the way. No, it's not that. It's because of this. I'm not connected. Well, there's always a reason, right? So bear with me while we'll do this again. And there's a reason why I'm not connected. It's not because I'm not connected here. Obviously, I'm connected here, but I'm virtualizing, right? So it's gonna happen that I don't expect. It's okay. We're gonna resolve them. Under the virtual machine, I have access to changing my my connection settings. I'm going to change to net for those people who are virtualizing with me. And then what this will do eventually is it'll fix my connection settings here. Let me just try this out. And then we can publish again. We can publish this thing, and then it'll connect and everything's fine. So that's how it should be. Sorry, it's my error. But anyways, this is what you do. The process that I showed you is the right process. All right, so now that I'm published, I've got my stuff up here. And just to check that, to make sure, if you refresh, here it is, right? I've got my first part, the lab, pretty much the first part of my lab is done. The second part is doing the test and getting the, what I'm talking about here today working. If you just handed me this part, you get part marks for your lab. If you just like put up anything on GitHub, or at least you'll get part marks, okay? To get full marks, I want you to pull up the test. I want you to do your comments here and stuff like this, right? So remember what we did. We created this, hello world to console application, right? That's what we did. Make it a little bit more complex this time around, all right? Just because. What I wanted to do is, who remembers how to get input from the command line? Anybody? I know this is going back and you're gonna have to work hard, huh? Console.read, right? If I have console.read, what do I get when I do a console.read? Console is the class, read is the method. I want you to think in those terms, right? What does the read method of the console class do? Does it give you something? It gives you some kind of input, right? Okay. So let's try this out. So we're not going to do it here in the main method. We're going to do it in our own method. And we're going to call this method get username, right? So the get username method. We're going to kind of come down here. We're going to kind of make this, and follow me here, public static. This is how we're going to do it. Those are the two things. It's going to return a string because we want to test it eventually, right? And it's going to be the get username method. So we'll say get user, it's a couple of U. We're using upper camel case here. And my get username method, right? And notice I'm getting this error. The reason why I'm getting the error is because I said that the return type is a string, and I don't have a return statement. I need a return statement to match the return type. Okay, I don't have that yet, but I'm gonna get my string, right? Okay, cool. So let's talk about a couple things. One is, when I get my username, I got a read line. Okay, so let's try this read line thing, right? So I'm going to say, so console.readline, right? Or read. I can do console.read, console.read key, console.readline. What is the difference between all these different console commands? There's only one? One character, are you sure? Okay. Do I want one character when I'm reading the name, or the whole line? Whole line, right? So read line is the way I want to go. And this is a method, so I need to close it off with parentheses. Okay, that's the first thing. And it has to kind of assign to something. I don't have a local variable here that it's assigning to. But let's make it. Let's establish a variable. It's going to be a string. I'm going to call this username, right? My username string. It's going to be a local string, right? And I'm going to initialize it to nothing in the beginning, right? I'm going to initialize my username string. This is string initialization, right? And we initialize variables, so initialize variables. This is the initialization step inside my method, right? And inside here, I'm going to actually do something with my console.readline. I'm going to get my username is equal to my console.readline, right? It's going to take the input from my console and store it inside this variable called username. This is good. Now I'm going to get, unfortunately for us, I'm going to get a bunch of different steps here. And I need to kind of tell the user that I need a username, usually, if I'm going to request input. So what I'm going to say is something like, please enter username, right? And I'm going to use a console.writeLine for that. So console, doing it the long way, .writeLine. What's the fast way? Someone mentioned last time. CW tab tab, right? So if I go CW tab tab like this, console.writeLine, right? And inside console.writeLine, if I do enter username, it's going to request, it's going to print this out before this, right? Now console.writeLine means that it'll give me another space, so my username will come underneath. If I want to make it so it's on the same line, it's console.write, right? So I want to do a console.write, right, with a username. That's the difference between write and WriteLine. I get my username, as an example, and I want to pump out you entered, and then some kind of username, right? That's what it's going to be. So console.writeLine, EW tab, right? You entered, and then what did you enter? How do I specify a string interpolation? I want to add in stuff. I can use the plus, yeah, the plus. By the way, there is in the latest version of Visual Studio 2015 and the .NET framework, which gives you C#6, if I'm not wrong, there is a string formatting option as well. We're not going to do that right now, but I will give that to you later. Okay, so console.writeLine, you entered whatever the username is, plus, right, the username variable, right? There's my username. Very simple example, right? I'm getting input, outputting stuff, right? You entered, and then the username. Okay, cool. And then what I probably want is some kind of separation. Maybe we'll do another CW. And then we'll do one of these. Maybe I'll do a bunch of equal signs to separate it. There we go. Right, so you entered. Maybe another console.writeLine with that. How do I add additional lines? What's the escape code to make additional lines without using console.writeLine? Anyone remember? Huh? /n? Is it \n or /n? Right? So this is going to give me a space, and then just these equal signs, and then da-da-da. Okay. I need to return something from my tests. And for now, I'm going to return, right, the username entered, right? So return, for now, username. Username is a string, right? I'm returning a string. That's what I'm returning. As long as the string is not empty, right, then I'm getting some input from the user, right? I can also test for the type of output that I'm getting. Console.writeLine enter username is the type of output that I'm getting, right? I can also test for, I'm just giving you an idea of what I'm testing for. When I create my test, I can also test for this formatted option right here. You entered, and then some kind of username, right? It's got to say you entered, right? Just like FYI. There's things we can test for. For now, I'm just returning the username. Okay. This method has to be called, and I'm going to call it from within my main method, right? So I'm going to say something like get username, right? Because get username calls the method. Again, this is like method 101. Okay, we haven't passed anything in. We haven't made any variables, whatever. Let's do a little bit of, we're going to comment this method a little bit because we have to do that too, right? So let's make some comments for the method. Method comments are a little bit different, okay? And again, maybe in COMP100, we didn't really talk too much about comments, huh? Did you talk some comments? Did you guys do any commenting on methods at all? Kind of. I'm going to point you to something called JSDoc, okay? And the reason why I'm pointing to JSDoc, it's not a bad commenting methodology to use. Everyone has a different way of doing it. If you do the JSDoc methodology, which is not going to hurt you, right? With @decorators, we're going to show you them in a second. So if I go JSDoc, or sorry, I think it's UEDoc. Go to UEDoc for a second. If I go to UEDoc, it's for JavaScript, right? But the great thing is, if you use this methodology for your comment headers, look what it does. It says, here's my method description. It has my parameters for different parameters. You can detail what it is and the return type, okay? And if you want to look at how it's done, there's a whole way of doing it. Kind of a user guidelines on kind of making it happen, right? So here's my syntax reference, and it kind of tells you step by step if I'm going to make a module, how I can comment each of the modules. I want you to comment your methods in this way, okay? I'm just establishing best practice, okay? Every company that you'll work for that uses C# or Java, JavaScript, whatever, will have a commenting methodology. This is going to be ours, okay, for this class. It doesn't have to be the only way, but the reason why I'm making you do it this way, if you ever do a JavaScript course, you've got that too, right? It's kind of hand in hand. It kind of works together, right? And I think there are some people that are doing a JavaScript course with me, so be prepared, right, for this kind of thing to happen all the time. It's good practice. Okay, so here's my main method, here's my class, here's my element, and here's a method. So I'm definitely going to use the at method and the at return. I don't have any parameters, so there is no at param that I'm going to be using here, but I definitely want to use this methodology. So I'm going to use / star star to start it off. Okay, so let's go back. So here I'm going to go like this, and I'm going to go / star star, and as I go down, I'm definitely going to do the star / like this and put this down here. Okay. So here's the description. The description starts off like this in the beginning. I kind of have to do it the right way, Tom. The description starts off like this. Like, what is this method for? Well, obviously, the method name should describe the method. Get username. That's what it's for. This method gets or reads the username from the console. It does, right? All right, so at method, which is the method name, get username. Again, I'm going to refer back to this document right here, which is the UI document you can find online, which is the syntax document. If you look at the method, at method, and the name of the method, and then you see the description is right up here. And down here, there's at return, the return type. What are you returning? A string, and the kind of the details of what you're returning. Right. So if I go back down here, I can say, what's my return method? At return, the type is a string. I do the return type with curly braces like this. Okay. At return string, and then what this string returns, which is returns the username. Actually, you might just want to put something like this. It might be easier for you to just put in username. Right? It's very simple, right? But it tells you what you're doing. If I have parameters that are going into the method, I'm going to put at param, the type of parameter, and what's going in. Why? I'm mentioning the inputs and the returns. Okay, this is a very good way of understanding what you're doing. It's a little bit cumbersome at first if you're not used to doing it, but it forces you to comment. Guys and girls, I'm going to require that every assignment, every test that we do, has some kind of comments before your methods, right? It's got to be unique to you. Also, what you may want to put addition to this is your version. Sometimes we version our methods as well, not just the whole document, especially if your methods or classes are in separate documents. Right now, I'm not going to do that, but you could decide to put something kind of like a version number here for this thing. Okay, is this my initial version? No, this is wrong, right? So I could, this is a little bit of housekeeping, but if you really wanted to, and I'm being a little bit of a stickler here with this particular document. I'm imagining a bigger organization, in my mind. Right? It's not really true. But I would probably put version 2. And I only care about, because I also have GitHub, I only care about what's the latest thing I've done. I added the get username method. That's what I did with my version, right? That's the only thing I've changed. Why am I doing this? I'm documenting the changes that I'm making to my program. Step by step. Why is this important? Okay, let's take a look. I'm saving the document. I'm going to go back to my Team Explorer now, and I'm going to go back to changes. Right? Notice that there's one change to my program.cs file. I'm going to stage this change, just like I showed you last time. It's staged. Okay, if I look back over here into my document, I've gone from this to this. Now I need to make a commit statement, which is just a friendly name for a snapshot that I'm taking the current state of my code, creating a snapshot for it, and saving it in a hidden folder called .git. Okay, that's what's happening. It's happening automatically. You're not seeing the step, but it's happening. So if I go, what's my new commit? I'll say something like this. Check this out here. Added get username method. Okay, save and commit. Once I've done that, notice that some stuff changes over here. Notice that it says 0 references, my name, less than 5 minutes ago, 1 author, 2 changes. All right, it kind of documents throughout your entire code, right, what changes you've made when you have GitHub activated. All right. Okay, I'm going to click back on home, and I'm also going to click on sync. Now, there's a bunch of other options here for 2015. Nice options. You may not have them for 2015. Not a problem. Just click on sync, please. And there's going to be a sync button. For me, I'm going to click on the push button. There's also a push button for you, too. A push little link. I'm going to push everything up, and then what happens is it's successfully pushed to my origin master up online. Take a look at my GitHub now online. If I refresh, I have an additional commit. Now I have 4 commits. Notice on GitHub, when you look online in the cloud, it details all the commits up here, right? Take a look. So here's my initial 2 commits that have been created by Visual Studio. There's one that I made for initial commit, and there's another one for added get username method. Let's take a look at this more closely. If I go to my initial commit, if I click onto it, it shows me my changes. Take a look. Author, blah, 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 initial version, right? If I click on this one, it shows me my changes, right? Look, from initial version, I went to version 2, added get username method. This is very nice in terms of version tracking. What have I done? I can track your entire, your code from birth to death. I should say actually from birth to launch. Anyways, it's Friday the 13th. I got to put a death in there. But these are the changes. It tells you all the green stuff, tells you all the changes. The red changes here up on GitHub says these are removals, or things I've removed, or things I've so they're minuses and pluses, and the pluses mean these are additions. Okay, that's what happens. And this is all remarked here up on GitHub. You can see all these changes. Okay, cool. So I've got these couple changes made. If I go back to my main files here, you can see that I can also look right online. If I click in this folder, I can look at all the file details up online. So if you're following along with me and I'm too fast for you, I did something that you couldn't do, or you don't remember what I did, I clicked off the screen, you can always go up to my GitHub or say, hey, professor, can you push, right? Because I'll push up to GitHub and then you'll have all my code, right? So please, as we go forward in this course, I might go fast at times. Put up your hand and say, can you push? So I just didn't catch that. And no problem, I'll do that, right? So then you'll have the code. You can always look there and you'll see the changes that I made. You compare my code with your code and say, if his worked and mine's not working, what did he do, right? All right, cool. So we've got some pretty good standards here, code standards. I can also do the same thing for the class program. This is my driver class. I could document my driver class. And if I was going to document it, let's do one more example for UIDoc. Right, so if I go back to UIDoc syntax, I can look at the class syntax. It's very similar, right? I have my utility. What's this thing? What's this document for? What's the class for? My @. @class is the decorator. That's what I call it, right? And then there's also the constructor. I can detail what the constructor is, right? I can have multiple constructors for each class, remember? And for each, we're going to talk about multiple constructors for each method, right? Well, let's talk about this. For now, all I want you to do is for classes, when we get to that, is I want you to add a space and start documenting the same way. So a double star. And then what I want you to do in here is on the top of your class, notice the colors are a different color here, right? Is this color the same color as this? Gray, green. I don't know if you can see that, but there is a difference in color. Yours might be slightly different. I'm going to start typing, and this is a driver class, yes. Maybe. I haven't looked that carefully, but probably. But who cares? It's just all I'm doing is it's syntax highlighting. It's color coding, color highlight, syntaxing. Syntax coloring. Sorry, that's what it's called. This is the driver class for our program. That's what it is, right? And we're going to say it's @class. What's the class name? Program. The program class, right? And we also have our @constructor main, right? We can put that in there. So @constructor main, right? Now remember, I can have multiple constructors, but for now I'll have one constructor, which is main. I could also document my main method. So if that's the case, I can take this out of here. I know I'm being a bit of a stickler here, but just bear with me, right? Class program, I can do other things here. I can also talk about in my program class, any parameters that are built in, any other things that I have that are part of my program class. I don't have any variables right now in my program class, any class variables. We talk about class variables, or they're also called instance variables. I don't have any of those, but if I did, I could put them in here. I can list them, right? But in my main method, this is my main method, right? I can do the same thing. Now this is my main method, but it's a constructor, right? So I can do something like this. Right? I can kind of go up here like this. and I could say main method for class program, right? And I could say something like this, at constructor, right, main. And notice that there's a couple of parameters. There's a string parameter called args. What kind of string is this? It's not just a string. What's this? Array, a string array of arguments, right? That's what it is. So I could say something like at param, right? And I can put something like string array. That's the parameter, args. Looks silly, but honestly what you're doing is I can look at the header and I can see everything that I have in my parameters, right? That's what it's for. Save that. Okay, I added some documentation. This is my third version. I'm going to do another push. Why am I doing these pushes? Get you used to GitHub. That's my underlying reason, right? Not because I really need to do all these pushes. And I mean, I would have most likely have documented everything as I go. My initial commit probably should have included this documentation over here, but what the heck, right? So let's do that. So let's make it another version. So version 3 was I updated my comments. Updated comments for my driver class. And I'm going to save that. That's my change. Well, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this little message. This is my commit message. Everything I changed here, this is my commit message. All I'm doing is documenting, so you can always look at the top of your commit message if you remember, and you know, kind of put it, you know, kind of copy and paste it into your commit when I need to. So I'm going to say Control C for copy. I'm going to go home on my Team Explorer. I'm going to go to changes. There's going to be one change. I'm going to push it up to the staging area. I'm going to drop and drag, you know, copy and paste that commit message. This should match this one. Commit stage. I'm going to go home, and then I'm going to go sync and push. And then clickety-click, I'm up to date. Questions so far? I've done it a couple times just so you can see it, right? Yes. You don't have it because you're 2013. It automatically gets staged. As soon as there's a change, it's staged, right? The only thing you have to do is make a commit message. The commit message takes it from the staging area right into your GitHub repository automatically. And that's why 2015 is a little better, because you can choose which ones to stage and which ones not. All right? Okay, 2015, I mean, yes?
So after you go to the home and sync, you need to click push it, you have to click sync.
If you have 2013, yeah, well, if you have 2015, and if I go to, if I make a change, if I click sync,
yeah,
it pulls first and then pushes, right? It's not a bad thing, right? I'm pushing because I don't have anyone I'm sharing with. If you're sharing with somebody else, whenever you make a change or whatever, you remember sometimes in a team environment, the way we would do it is I would be working on one branch and you would be working on another branch of the same repository. Think about two branches of the same tree, right? So the tree trunk is the main, the master branch, let's say, and then might be some secondary branches that span off the main tree trunk, right? The main trunk, right? So I might be working over here on something else. You might be working over here. We're not going to affect each other. At some point in time, we're going to merge the branches, right? And back into the trunk, the main branch, right? We do that in a team environment. And here, unless I get you guys to work as in a team project, you're not going to need to do that, all right? Just push. Because you don't have to, unless you made a change on your computer at home, then you want to pull your changes before you do any changes. Before I do any kind of adjustments, I pull my changes first, then start working, and then push my changes back up to GitHub. The easy way to work with a team member without any problems, because there can be problems if I'm working with somebody else. Let's say if you and I are working, right? What's your name? Yeah, okay. It's just, you came in too low, right? But let's say I'm working with this lady here, all right? So her and I are working together, right? And you know what? You have your program, you're done, you push your changes. What do? I know you're done, I pull your changes to me. I start working on my stuff, I'm done, I push my changes to GitHub. I tell you I'm done, you pull my changes down to your computer. That's how we do it. We pass the baton. You ready? You're done? Okay, it's like a check-in, check-out system. I check them in, you know, I take them, I check out, you know, kind of thing. Otherwise, if you don't do that, and if both of us work on the same thing at the same time, the same stuff, the same code, somewhere, some way, you have to resolve this conflict. Which one is the right change? Is it my change that should be first? Is it your change? GitHub doesn't know, right? You're not connected to GitHub forever. It's stateless, right? So what I'm doing is I connect to GitHub, I pull my stuff up, and then I'm disconnected again. And GitHub doesn't know what I'm doing after that, right? It's not like it keeps monitoring or watching my changes on my local repository. That doesn't happen, at least not yet. One day it will, right? Any questions more about GitHub, what I'm doing here with GitHub? I haven't completed my lab 1 yet. For me to complete lab 1, I need to make a test, okay? In order for my test to work, there's a couple steps I need to do. First, when I have my program here, right? I have my little program. It looks like a big program. I got to test it locally. I haven't tested it yet. I don't even know if it works, right? Let's test it locally first. So let's, I can run start if I want to, or I can control F5 is another thing I can do. So let's say control F5. I'm going to run that. And if everything goes working properly, it's hard to see for you guys. Let's see if I can make this a little bigger. It says enter username here. Let's see if I can change the size of my screen. Properties. It's already big. It's because of my my lovely virtualization and stuff. I could change the font, but I did already do that. Look, see if I went to properties, you can see that it's 10 by 20, right? The font. And it's I could change it to listen to console. I might make it a little bigger. Let me see. Yeah, okay. I'll do what you said because you're smart. Right? There we go. A little better, right? There's my username. That's hard to see because it's a purple background, but if you see enter username in there, so if I type in Tom, whatever it's going to be, Tom T, whatever. Maybe that's my username. And then it says you entered Tom T, and it says pressing the key to continue, right? So it kind of works, right? Uh-oh. I thought you said it was, /n. That's wrong, right? Let's fix that. That's a problem, right? That's an error in my code, right? So if I go down here, if I put in \n, right? By the way, I knew it was \n, but /n. So here's /n, and then what I want to do is maybe do a /n again to give separation between that and press enter, right? So I'm going to do that over here. So I'm going to say at the end of my code, I'm going to do one of these plus, and in quotations \n again. There we go. Let's test it again. So I'll run it this way this time. It's going to wait for something. Oh man, what happened? I thought you said it was going to stay. It's all your fault. I'm joking. Make it bigger so you guys can see it. Make it 36 this time. Okay. Username, and I'll say Tom, and it's going to go away because I only pressed the button. If I press the button here, it'll do its stuff and then go away. Control F5. This is just review for people. If I do it again, right? So if I press Tom, and then you can see that I get a bit of a space between what I entered and what it comes out as. Okay, cool. How do I test this? If I was before I make the test, I got to test that what I'm entering, what the output is correct, right? And I got to also test to see what my input from that I'm getting is correct, the way I'm going, right? How do I do that? Well, I can break this method into two. Hear me out when I say this kind of stuff. I know this sounds crazy, right? But what I'm entering from my username, if I want to test this, it's got to be its own method, right? Which means I'm going to get input from the console. That will be a method that I'm doing. Maybe I'm going to use that method over and over again because I just want to just get. I don't want to write these lines, control right, enter username, and username read line every single time. It doesn't make any sense. This, it doesn't. I'm gonna write these 2 lines of code over and over again, right? So keeping that in mind, I'm probably going to need to refactor this thing and extract these 2 lines of code into their own method. And then I'm going to call a method from within the other method, right? I know, I'm sorry, I'm getting complicated, but this is how we go, right? This is how we roll. So how do I do that the easy way? Well, I'm going to highlight these 2 lines. This is the easy way. Right-click. And then if you look down here, is there some place that I can kind of refactor or anything like that? Is there anything that I could do something or an extract method? Do you see anything in here? Because a lot of times what happens is, you have something that I could, kind of create a way of refactoring. Is there a way that you see here? There's GitHub, source control, there's fine matching, there's all kinds of stuff. A lot of times there's ways of doing it in a shorthand, right? Surround with, I could do that too. Go to definition, find all references, breakpoint. I can do all these things when I right click, right? Okay, what else? Are there any other way of doing it that anyone knows? Copy paste is a long way, right? So take a look at edit. If I go refactor, right? Edit refactor. See that? I have these two things, edit refactor, and I click on extract method, right? And I'm kind of showing you guys some shortcuts, right? We don't want to do this. We don't want to spend hours doing methods here, right? It's crazy. So click. It's going to come up with a little dialog box that says, okay, we want to rename the new method to something else. It tells you what to do. I want to include comments. I don't know if that might be dangerous, right? I want to include strings. I want to preview my changes, that's for sure, right? Before I do anything. Let's do this too, this little. I'm going to include all these things and press apply and see what it does. Well, it says rename method to new method, no changes, right? And it doesn't ask me to do anything. New method to new method. It doesn't make any sense. Let me cancel this change, right? Because new method, notice how this thing is popped up here. But here's my new method. It's highlighted. I can change it here as it's highlighted before I click apply. So instead of new method, what do I want to do? And by the way, look what it generates here. String, username, right? New method, console write line, enter username, username, console read line, return username. This is good, just like I did here. It actually created some additional things for me, right? So not only did it take those two lines, but added additional lines. This is good. Okay, let's make this thing so I want to get input, right? Get input from the console. So get console input or something like that. And when I do get console input or get string, get string from console, you got to think of something that it does. I'm getting a string from the console because I want to reuse this method in other methods, right? How do I do that? So, get string from console or something like that. Let's call it like that. So get string from console. Now yours may look different if you're using Visual Studio 2015. You may have to type it by hand if you can't do what I'm doing, right? All right, so get string from console is what the method's going to be called. Notice that in the refactoring step, it's actually renaming the my get string from console up here. All right, cool. And it says enter username is what I'm getting, and it's returning username right now. All right, I got to be careful of what it's returning, right? Apply. It shows you what's happening. These are the changes that are going on. It gives you a preview of what's going to happen. I can still cancel at this point if I want to. This is the refactoring. You might see the same refactoring step on Visual Studio 2013. Let's click apply, right? And we can see how it is. How does this help me? It kind of helps me, but it kind of doesn't, right? It helps me in that get string from console is the string that I'm getting from the console. But actually, that's not what I want to do. Let's undo. Undo again. Okay, so this is our original string, our original stuff. I want to point this out so that way we can see as we develop our code, our thinking. I want to be able to test my code, and I want to make sure that what I'm outputting is the right thing, not what I'm inputting. I'm inputting could be anything. My username is going to change every time. How can I test for that, right? So I want to really do this, right? What I'm outputting or what I'm putting out to the string, right? So some kind of string output to console, right, is what I want to make. And if I do one of these, my output to console with the string instead of a set username like this, I'm going to need a different kind of method. Let's extract this. Now remember, I can't do it like this. I tried to do like right click and go down here and do extract method. Didn't allow me to do that. But if I click edit and if I go down to refactor and if I click on extract method, right, now it's doing one line. I want to include comments. I think this is important. Include strings, sure. I want to preview my changes. And I also want to update my method name so it says, output, string to console, something like that. Output string to console. So output string to console. And this is like silly, right? But my output string to console shouldn't be just an enter username. It should be anything I want, right? Yes. I'm outputting to the console first. Then it's going to get, I'm going to ask them to read the username. That's the second step, right? I'm breaking it down into little units, right? Okay, I'm applying this change. It's going to ask me to see what it looks like. And this, I'm going to press OK, apply. All right, cool. Well, there's a few changes, right? My return is void. My return type is void when I output string to console, right? My return type cannot be void when I test. My return type has to be the string that I'm returning, right? Or my output, so string. This can't be enter username. I want a parameter here that I enter, right? Enter username, right? Output string to console. So this is going to be string to output, right? And it's going to be of type string. I'm going to listen for a parameter that's going to be of type string. I'm just going to hide this for a second so you guys can see what I'm doing here. My string parameter is going to, I'm listening for an output string. We'll call it output string, lowercase. Okay, that's my parameter. I got a bunch of errors so far, and I'll talk about them in a second. And my console write isn't enter username, it's output string. Okay. Why? This is a more flexible. This is a more flexible little thing that allows me to enter whatever I want, right, over and over again. Now this is a very silly program, but follow me here. Return output string, right? Okay, so this is what I'm doing here. I'm going to comment this in a second, right? Here's my output string to console, and it's listening for the reason why it's giving me an error. It says, hey, output string to console. There is no argument given that corresponds to a required format parameter. I need, because I'm listening here for my, I'm actually hitting, I'm listening for a parameter, a string parameter, but I'm not putting it in here. I'm getting an error. Make sense, right? So here I need to put in the string that I'm outputting, and I can put in a string literal like this. Enter username. That's a string literal will satisfy my string requirement. String literal, string requirement, right? Enter username. And I also want to do one of these, right? A space, because output string to console is a console write. Here's another thing. Do I want to have another parameter that says, I know this is very silly again, but bear with me. Do I want to have another parameter that says, I want not only output string to console, but I also want to differentiate between a write or a write line, right? So if I want to add in a space, okay, I want to go to the next line. How do I do that? And maybe I can make a Boolean, another parameter that's a Boolean that says, yes, true. I do want to add a space between my next input. So how do I make that? I have to think about what it's going to be called. It's going to be of type Boolean. If I start type bool, there it is. That's my parameter. And it's something that the user is going to be able to do to say, I either want an extra space or I don't, or I want an extra space between strings or not. I want it to be on the same line. Do I want it to be a write, console write, or do I want it to be a console write line? Which one do I want to use, right? And it's going to be of which type it is. It's like almost like a, I'll call it, I usually do Booleans is something. That's how I call them, like is, same space, or is one line, or is multi-line, something like that, right? Or is new line, or something like that. Boolean has new line, right? So if has new line is true, then I'm going to add in, I'm going to test for has new line right here in my method and make it a little more complex for no reason, right? Just to demonstration purposes, please. This is not an example of a really good, awesome method. It's just demonstration purposes to demonstrate a couple things for us, right? Which means this doesn't work anymore. Output string to console needs an extra parameter, which is bool, right? Of type Boolean, which is, do I want to make it output to new line? The answer is false, right? So enter username false, which means don't add an extra new line character. Now, if it's true, I have to be able to deal with it here in my method, right? So if, hear me out, if my Boolean, this has new line, is true, then make it console.write. If new line is false, then it's only console.write line, right? Or whatever, it's the other way around, right? So let's test that. So I'll add those two parameters in there. So I'll say if, I'll test, has new line. I have to put has new line is equal to true, or can I leave it as has new line? Come on, this is a test, a trick for all you awesome programmers out there. Yes, I can leave it. Has new line by itself means it exists, it's true, right? So if has new line, then I could put my condition would be console.write line. This is a very simple, silly example, by the way, output string. Otherwise, if it's something else, right, then console.write, which kind of makes me undo, cut, paste. Does it make sense? So if I test my Boolean, if it has a new line, if I need a new line to my output, right, then I make a write line. Otherwise, it's a write. Now, that's a very simple example and a silly one too, right? But it illustrates a couple things. That we can make our output string to console very flexible because this method is actually a little bit more useful than it was before. And we can test. We can test what the input is or the output. Let's write our little comments now. So we're going to say like this, right? And then as we write things in, I start typing this method writes string to the console. Parameters allow us to allow the user to choose to add a new line character. Okay, that's one. That's the description. Then at param, or actually at method is the name of the method, right? Which is, if you look at the method, which is output string to console. It's the name of the method. Let's look at the UI doc. Do you put the parameters before or after the method? And if you look at the UI doc for method, you can see that the method is here. And if you look at some other examples here, right? Attributes, properties. Properties also are other things that we can add in for our container. Let's see if there's something that's more. Here's our module. So where does it show us our at params? We put them before or after, right? And if we look through for secondary tags, namespace, constructor, extends, all those kind of things, you can certainly go down here and see that there is a whole bunch of other things we can add in. Here's the at param. Notice that our at param string and the name, whatever it is, usually you can have more than one parameter and there's a return. So the method, the return, and some kind of parameter in between. Let's try that. So it'd be like this, at param, and then what type it is. The first one is string, my string parameter, and it's output string. And I'm going to kind of, actually it's kind of the output, but anyways, output string, whatever. And then at param, the second one is bool, a Boolean type, so we know what it is, and it has new line. You can describe those more. I'm not going to do that. Also, it has an at return, right? My return type is string. At return, and then it's string. So it returns a string, which is output string, by chance. So it kind of takes in the output string, and it returns the output string. This is dangerous. Hold on. So whatever output string I'm putting in gets returned. Is that what I want in my test? Yes, it is. Right? Normally, we don't want to just pass parameters through it for no reason, right? But here, we want to test what's being output. So this is the reason why we're doing it. We're actually creating this method not just for utility, but for testing, right? Because we want to be able to test the fact that this method is working. So we've commented this method, as an example. I want to, before I put it up on GitHub, this is more realistic, I want to test it locally, right? So save everything, And then I want to control F5, right, to test it, see if it works. Hey, it works, enter username. Because I wouldn't get this, right, if my method wasn't working properly. Let's try and type, you know, Tom. There's Tom, right, as a username. You know what, maybe what I want is some kind of additional space under, below my equal separator, right? So I can do that. I can put up an additional space, maybe another \n in there. Okay, this works, but let's make test one more time. Let's test it so instead of false, it's true. Let's see what it does with a true. The true adds in an extra line anyway, so it's going to be 2 lines instead of 1 line. And how do we test this out? Well, it's going to use this one if it's true, or this one if it's false. Those 2 things, right? Okay. Let's try this out again. So Control F5, testing locally. Oh, see how it is? There's my Tom. Before it was a right, now it's a right line. It works, right? So put in Tom, whatever, my username is there, and we're done, right? So this worked. It should be false in our case, because all we need to do is make it false, right? Okay. We're getting closer to testing, all right? First, we do all this stuff. Okay, now, you know what? Let's go back up to the top. Here's version 0.4, right? What did we add? Well, we extracted output source to console method, right? That's what we did. We extracted our output source to console from our get username method. Right, so that's what we're going to put in here. Extracted. That's not what I extracted. Output source to console. Output string or outputs? What did I do? Yeah. Thank you. Output string to console from our get username method. Right? That's what we really did in 0.4, right? By the way, you see the version number 0.4? Bang. You shouldn't be using 0.4. You should be actually using, I'll talk about versioning later on. It should be 0.04, right? Because really we haven't got our official real version of our code. This means that there's actual a release that's 0.4. Doesn't make any sense. It should be 0, but that's 0.4, right? But we're not going to change that now in this little example. Okay, cool. Save that. I'm going to go up to when I'm finished saving and my Windows virtualization is finished cycling. Give me a second. Yay. I'm going to go to Team Explorer again, pin it. And then I'm going to go to Home. I'm going to go to Changes. I can see that there's one change again, the one file. I add that, and I say the same thing. I'm going to take this whole line here, steal the line, because I don't want to retype if I don't have to. Control-C, Control-V, commit staged, home, and sync. Now here's something I want you to note, that I'm going to click sync just because you asked me. Someone says, can I sync? If I click sync, it does the same thing. It just pulls and pushes. Here's something to note, that I've been pushing to GitHub every change. Do I really have to do that? The answer is no. I can make a bunch of commits, right? I should commit regularly like I'm doing, all right? Because every time I add a feature or make a change to my code, it's a good chance to commit. If I get up to go to the washroom, right, like this, I should commit my changes, right? If I shut down for the day, I should commit my changes. If I'm having a conversation with somebody else and someone's distracting me, hold on a second. Commit your changes, whatever they are. Washroom break, right? Whatever. Why? Because something goes wrong, computer fails, you know, your dog eats your computer or whatever happens, right, in between you and talking and something else, you don't lose your changes. It's paranoid in some ways, right? But it makes it so that it shows your progression as well as you don't lose your code. Yes?
So like after you push it, does it push all the versions or like just the final?
No, it takes all the commits in order and pushes them all up.
So basically, after you push it, let's say after 10 commits, you will have to see on the GitHub, you see
10 commits. Yes. So the question is for people who are online and watching this, if I push it, if I have a bunch of commits first, I have a bunch of commits, I do a bunch of commits, and then I push, what's going to happen is it's going to push all of those commits all at once, right? That's what's going to happen. So it's going to basically go in order. So GitHub will be up to date with what you have locally. So your local repository with those commits will be synced up with your remote repository with those commits. Okay? All right, so we've got our commits. This is a great place to take a break. Let's take a 5-minute break, do a little bio break, right? We've already done our push up to GitHub, right? When we come back, we'll do the testing piece, okay? And we'll set up just testing on the last piece. So go ahead, take 5 minutes. If you have to go to the washroom, take a short break, and I'll stop recording, and we'll come back and do the next piece.